Some boards are just noise. Memes, spam, pointless arguments. Then, once in a while, a post drops that makes the whole thread go quiet. This is LurmoStories, where we don't ignore those moments. Keep listening. Silence on a forum usually means something's very wrong. I was staying at a mid-tier business hotel off an interstate in Ohio. The kind with gray carpet, muted art, and a fitness room that looks like it was added after a lawsuit. I couldn't sleep, jet-lagged and wired, so around 1:20 a.m., I went down to the gym. No staff, just a keycard reader and a sign about towels. Inside were 2 treadmills, a bike, and a universal machine. Lights half-dimmed, no windows. I tapped my room number into the treadmill because it asked for it. Thought it was just for maintenance stats. I walked for about 20 minutes, nothing intense, watching the local news loop with no sound. When I finished, the screen flashed, "Workout saved." Under it was my room number and a timestamp. Weird, but fine. I wiped the handles, left. Back in my room, my phone buzzed. Email from the hotel. Subject: "Thank you for using our fitness center." It listed my room number and said my session duration was 46 minutes. That didn't line up. I checked the time. I'd been gone just over half an hour, including the elevator. I shrugged it off. Automated systems mess up. The next morning, at checkout, the front desk clerk smiled and asked if I enjoyed the gym twice last night. I said I only went once. She tilted her head and turned the screen so I could see. 2 entries, same room number. One at 1:23 a.m., the other at 2:11 a.m., both marked completed. I told her that wasn't possible. She said sometimes guests forget they went back down. I said I never left my room after 1:50. She apologized and said she'd note it. That night, curiosity got the better of me. I went back down, earlier this time, around 11. Empty again. I didn't use any machine, just stood there, listening to the hum of the lights. After a minute, the treadmill screen woke up on its own. It already had my room number filled in. I left without touching anything. In the elevator, my phone buzzed again. Workout in progress. I didn't go back to my room right away. I rode the elevator down to the lobby and sat where I could see the front desk computer. The night clerk was a different guy, older, glasses, reading something on his phone. My email notification stayed on the screen. Workout in progress. No duration listed. At 11:47 p.m., another email came in. Workout paused. At 11:49 p.m., workout resumed. I was still sitting in the lobby. The clerk hadn't moved. No one walked past me toward the elevators. I asked him if anyone had used the gym in the last hour. He checked the log and said, "Yeah, looks like room 614 is active right now." That was my room. I told him I was standing in front of him. He frowned, refreshed the page, then said sometimes the machines lag and auto-close later. He didn't sound convinced. I went upstairs with him. The gym door opened without a key card. Inside, one treadmill belt was moving slowly, like someone had stepped off for a second. The screen showed elapsed time ticking upward. Heart rate field blank. Calories counting anyway. The clerk reached for the stop button and hesitated. He asked if I'd left anything running earlier. I said no. He pressed stop. The belt slowed. The screen froze. Then it asked, "End session?" Before either of us answered, the display changed. The session split into 2 columns, one labeled with my room number, another labeled unreddited user. Both had timestamps overlapping. The clerk stepped back and said that wasn't normal. He told me he'd called maintenance in the morning and offered to comp my stay. I asked him to print the activity log. He said the printer was down, but he could email it. Back in my room, I locked the door and sat on the bed. At 12:32 a.m., my phone buzzed again. Workout complete. Duration 1 hour, 19 minutes. I checked my step counter. It matched the longer time. At 12:34, there was a knock at my door. I didn't answer. Through the peephole, I saw no one. The hallway was empty. A second later, my phone buzzed again. Feedback requested. How was your workout, partner? I didn't sleep. I sat on the desk chair with the lights on until morning, replaying every email, every timestamp. At checkout, I asked for a printed copy of the gym logs. Different clerk this time. She said there were no irregularities on my account, no duplicate sessions, no unregistered user, just one workout, 32 minutes, completed at 1:41 a.m. the first night. I asked about the emails. She said those are generated automatically and don't always sync with the system. I asked about the treadmill turning on by itself. She smiled like she'd heard 100 complaints like that and said the equipment was motion sensitive. I left it alone, drove home, tried to forget it. 2 days later, I got another email. Thank you for staying with us. Attached was a PDF titled Fitness Center Usage Summary. It wasn't addressed to my name, just my room number. The document listed 3 sessions over 2 nights. The third one was timestamped at 3:02 a.m. on the morning after I checked out. Duration, 18 minutes. Calories burned, low. Heart rate, learning. At the bottom was a note I hadn't seen before. Unregistered users will be paired when possible to improve engagement. I called the hotel. The number rang, then disconnected. I tried again. Same thing. That night, my phone buzzed while I was sitting on my couch. New notification. Same subject line as before. Workout in progress. I don't own a treadmill. I checked my health app. Steps were counting up, slowly, steadily, like someone pacing in a small room. I turned the phone off. When I turned it back on, there was one final email waiting. Congratulations on your consistency. Next session scheduled. No time listed, just a location. It was my address. I rented the car for 3 days. White sedan, nothing special, picked up at LAX late at night. The clerk was half asleep. Printed the contract, slid the keys across without looking up. I remember because the printer jammed and he sighed like it ruined his whole shift. 2 weeks later, back home in Arizona, a letter showed up from the California Department of Motor Vehicles. Not a warning, not a notice, a citation. Highway camera violation. Speeding. Timestamped. Clear photo of the rear plate. The plate belonged to the rental. What bothered me wasn't the ticket. It was the stamp across the bottom. Paid. Receipt attached. I opened the envelope twice, thinking I missed something. The receipt showed the fine paid in full. Cash payment. In person. At a traffic violations office in San Bernardino County. The date of payment was 3 days before the letter was mailed. I never paid it. The rental company didn't pay it. I checked my card statements anyway. Nothing. I called the rental company. They put me on hold, came back, said their system showed the ticket as resolved externally. That was their exact phrase. No charge passed to me, no record of reimbursement. So I drove to the traffic violations office listed on the receipt. I told myself it was probably a clerical mix-up. Someone typed the wrong plate. Someone else's problem glued onto mine. The office was small, fluorescent lit, and quiet in a way that felt intentional. No line. Just one clerk behind thick glass. Older woman, reading something on her screen. I slid the letter under the slot. I got this in the mail, I said. It says it was already paid. She didn't ask for my ID, didn't ask for my name, just typed the citation number. Yes, she said, it was settled. By who? She paused. Not a long pause, just long enough to feel measured. The driver. I am the driver, I said. I didn't come here. She looked up at me then, finally. Her expression didn't change, but her eyes did something subtle, like checking alignment. You came in, she said. You were here. I laughed, because that's what you do when the alternative is arguing with a government building. I've never been to San Bernardino in my life. She turned the monitor slightly, not enough for me to read clearly, just enough for me to see there was a photo attached to the payment record. You paid in cash, she said. You asked for a receipt. You asked us not to mail anything to the address on file. My mouth went dry. Can I see the photo? She hesitated, then shook her head. It's not a requirement for resolution, she said. Your matter is closed. As she slid the letter back to me, I noticed something new stamped near the barcode. Not bold, almost like it wasn't meant to be noticed. Second contact not required. I stood there for a second too long. She had already gone back to her screen. When I walked out, I checked my phone. One missed call. No voicemail. The number was local, San Bernardino. I called the number back in the parking lot. It rang twice, then clicked. No greeting, just breathing. Not heavy, not strained, like someone holding the phone a few inches from their mouth. Hello? I said. A pause. Then my voice came back through the speaker. Same tone, same cadence, same hesitation on the word. Hello? I pulled the phone away and stared at it like that would help. The call was still connected. No delay, no distortion, just clean audio. "I think you have the wrong," I started. "Office," the voice finished. My voice. "They don't like repeat visits." The line went dead. I checked the call log. The number was gone. Not blocked, not unknown, just not there. That night, I pulled the rental agreement out of a folder and read it line by line. VIN, plate, pickup time, drop-off time, mileage. Everything matched what I remembered, except one thing I'd skipped over the first time. Authorized driver, self, duplicate. I assumed it meant a backup copy of the contract. That's what the rental company told me when I called again. Duplicate was a system artifact, nothing unusual. I asked them if anyone else accessed the car. They said no. I asked if anyone ever paid a violation in person on my behalf. They said no. I asked if the car was ever flagged, inspected, or held. Longer pause that time. "Not officially," the guy said. "Why?" I didn't answer. 2 days later, a second letter arrived. Same envelope, same agency. This one wasn't a citation. It was a notice of non-appearance. Failure to appear for a scheduled review regarding a traffic incident. No fine listed, no court date listed, just a line saying the matter was resolved by attendance. Attached was a printed still image, not the highway camera photo, something else. A security camera shot from inside the traffic violations office. The timestamp matched the date on the receipt. The person at the counter was wearing my jacket, the one I'd worn on the trip. Same tear near the cuff, same watch on the left wrist. The face was turned slightly away from the camera, but the posture was unmistakable. The way the shoulders slouched, the way the weight leaned on one leg. On the back of the photo, in blue pen, were 4 words. "You don't remember the second drive." I sat there for a long time holding that photo, trying to reconstruct the trip hour by hour. Gas stops, music playlists, phone calls, receipts. There was a 6-hour gap the first night, from 11:40 p.m. to just before dawn. No charges, no photos, no messages sent. I told myself it was sleep, jet lag, fatigue, but the mileage on the rental didn't line up. It was higher than it should have been. Not by much, enough to cross county lines, enough to come back. I drove back to California a week later. Not because I wanted answers, because another letter arrived, forwarded this time, marked final confirmation. No threat, no demand. Just a single sentence, printed too low on the page, like it was added afterward. "Thank you for complying again." The address at the bottom wasn't a traffic office. It was a records annex outside San Bernardino. Public building, business hours listed, nothing secret. Inside, the lobby smelled like old paper and cleaning solvent. A security guard waved me through without checking my ID. No metal detector, no sign-in sheet. At the counter, a young clerk smiled like he'd been waiting. "You're early," he said. "I didn't have an appointment." He clicked his mouse. "You already checked in." I told him that wasn't possible. He nodded, still smiling, and reached under the desk. He slid out a thin folder and placed it between us. My name was on the tab. Correct spelling. Inside were documents I'd never seen, forms authorizing release of footage, a handwritten statement describing loss of situational continuity, a signature at the bottom. It was mine. "You come in when the system flags overlap," the clerk said. "Most people don't notice. You did." "Overlap with what?" He shrugged. "Usage." I asked him to explain. He flipped to the last page instead. A map. Highways highlighted in yellow. One route traced over another, almost identical, except for a detour that cut through a stretch of desert I didn't remember driving through. "That road camera caught you twice," he said. "Same car, same plate. 2 passes, 90 minutes apart. Only one of them matched the rental log." "So the other one didn't," he said. "But someone still showed up to take responsibility." I felt cold then. Not panicked, just wrong. Like standing where something heavy had been moved recently. "Why pay in cash?" I asked. "Because cards leave trails," he said. "And you asked us not to keep copies." "I didn't ask for any of this." The clerk finally stopped smiling. "That's not what your statement says." He slid the folder back. On the inside cover, in my handwriting, was a sentence I didn't remember writing. "If this version is here, The other one finished the drive. I left without another word. No one stopped me. On the way home, my phone buzzed once. A text from an unsaved number. Rental return confirmed. Thank you for sharing the vehicle. I pulled over and checked the odometer. It had gone up again. Just a little. Anon here. Not sure why I'm posting this, just need it out somewhere. My dad passed last month. Stroke. Nothing dramatic. County hospital, a phone call at 6 a.m., a woman with a tired voice asking if I was his next of kin. I handled the paperwork, picked a cheap suit, did all the boring adult stuff you don't think about until it's suddenly yours. The funeral home sent me to the municipal cemetery office to sort out the plot and headstone. It's one of those old places on the edge of town, acres of uneven grass, cracked asphalt roads, flags on bent poles. Everything looks like it's waiting to be replaced, but never is. Inside the office, it smelled like dust and floor cleaner. A guy behind the counter, late 50s maybe, gray hair, heavy boots, kept glancing at me while I filled out the forms. Not rude, just watching, like he was trying to remember where he'd seen me before. I told him my father's name. He nodded, typed slowly, asked for the date of death. Normal stuff. While the printer whined behind him, he leaned back and said, "You're here about a completed order, right?" I told him no, I hadn't ordered anything yet. I was just here to see options. That's when his expression changed. Not shocked, more like confused, then relieved. "Huh," he said. "That's strange." He stood up, walked around the counter, and motioned for me to follow him through a side door marked "Staff Only." I should have stopped him. I didn't. It felt easier to just keep moving. We passed rows of headstones, leaning at that angles, names worn down to nothing. The further we walked, the quieter it got. No traffic noise, no birds. He stops near a row that looked newer than the rest. Fresh dirt, temporary wooden markers. He pointed. "Your order's been ready since last week," he said. The stone was already set. Polished granite, clean edges. No dates yet, just my full name carved deep into the surface. Spelled correctly, middle initial included. The guy looked at me and finally said it. "You didn't change your mind, did you?" I told him that wasn't my father's name. He frowned and checked a clipboard. Then he said my name out loud, slowly, like he was confirming it matched my face. "Yeah," he said. "This one's yours." That's when I noticed the space next to the name, where the date was supposed to go. It wasn't blank, it just hadn't been carved yet. I laughed, not because it was funny, but because my body picked the wrong reaction. I told him there had to be a mistake. I said my father's name again, louder this time, like volume would fix it. He listened, nodded, then said something that made my stomach drop. "Your dad's marker is 2 rows over. That one isn't finished yet." I didn't go look. I kept staring at the stone with my name on it. The letters looked too deep, like they'd been cut slowly, carefully. I asked who ordered it. He flipped through the clipboard again. Came through the county system, same way most do. Pre-need order. I told him I never prepaid for a grave, never even thought about it. "That's what most folks say," he replied casual. Still ends up accurate. I asked what he meant by that. He didn't answer. Instead, he crouched down and brushed dirt off the base of the stone, checking the alignment like he was proud of it. That's when I noticed the plastic sleeve tucked behind it. He pulled it out and handed it to me. Inside was a single page. Official looking, county seal, my name typed at the top, social security number underneath, correct. There was a section labeled time of interment, not filled in, just highlighted in yellow. I asked him why it was highlighted. "So we don't miss it," he said. "Happened once before. Family was upset." I asked where this paperwork came from. He pointed toward the office. "System updates overnight. We just get the orders." I told him to cancel it, that it was wrong, that I was standing right there. He finally looked uncomfortable. "Can't cancel once the stone's set," he said. "Policy." I asked him what happens if I don't show up. He stared at me for a long second. His eyes kept drifting back to the stone. "Then it gets awkward," he said, paperwork-wise. On the walk back, I noticed more finished stones than before. Newer ones, clean. Too many for a place that looked half forgotten. I started paying attention to the names. Some were common, some weren't. One of them was the guy walking 10 feet ahead of me. Same last name. Same middle initial. I stopped. He kept walking. I asked him how long he'd worked there. Long enough, he said, without turning around. I asked if his name was on one of these stones. He stopped then, slowly turned. Mine's already been here a while, he said. Keeps things simple. Back at the office, he printed my receipt. At the bottom, under Services Rendered, there was an item I didn't ask for. Grave opening. Pending. I left without taking the receipt. On the drive home, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. One text. Please confirm availability. I didn't reply to the text. I blocked the number, tossed the phone onto the passenger seat, and drove until the cemetery disappeared in the rearview mirror. Traffic felt louder than usual. Every red light felt personal, like it was trying to slow me down on purpose. That night, I went through my dad's old paperwork, mostly out of habit. Deeds, insurance forms, things yellowed with age. Near the bottom of a filing box, I found an envelope from the county clerk's office, unopened, dated 2 years ago. Inside was a confirmation notice. Pre-need burial registration. Approved. My name. My signature. The signature looked like mine. The curves were right. The pressure points were right. I stared at it for a long time, trying to remember signing anything like that. Nothing came up. No memory at all. The next morning, there was a voicemail. Same unknown number. No voice, just background noise. Wind. Metal clinking. After a few seconds, a man cleared his throat close to the receiver, like he was about to speak, then decided not to. I called the cemetery office, straight to voicemail. I drove back instead. The gates were open, but the office lights were off. No cars in the lot. I walked past the rows, straight to the newer section. The stone was still there. Something had changed. The date was carved now. Not today's date, not tomorrow's. Last week. The day my dad died. Below it, smaller letters I hadn't seen before. Beloved son. I heard footsteps behind me, slow, familiar. The groundskeeper didn't look surprised to see me. Told them you probably want to check, he said. Most do. I asked him who filled in the date. He shrugged. System reconciles discrepancies. I asked him why my dad's death date was on my stone. He thought about it, then said, shared events can confuse the timing. I asked what happens next. He looked past me toward an empty stretch of grass directly behind the stone. Freshly cut, marked with a thin wooden stake. Usually, he said, the order finishes itself. I left before he could say anything else. That afternoon, I checked the county records online. My status was listed as inactive. Social Security, voter registration, medical portal, inactive, as of last week. I still go to work. My badge still opens the door. People talk to me, but they don't really look at me anymore. Conversations end quickly. Emails don't get replies. Yesterday, a letter came in the mail. Final receipt. Everything paid in full. I didn't throw it away. I put it back in the envelope. Feels wrong to lose paperwork when it's the only proof you were ever scheduled at all. This was LurmoStories, and we've reached the point where the stories end and the overthinking begins. When you put your phone down tonight, notice how fast you pick it back up to check one more time.